Okay, so in Attack on Titan Part 3, there were a ton of hidden clues and references that were easy to miss, and so in this video we're going to be going through the episodes scene by scene to explain some of the smaller details and also to explain certain character motivations. Starting off with the opening scene between Eren and Mikasa, the interesting thing about this is that it's actually the third version of this same interaction. So the original version came in the manga about 13 years ago, when Eren woke up under the tree and he had a dream of Mikasa saying, "See you later, Eren." Now, what was interesting about that version is that you can clearly tell this is a young version of Mikasa. You can tell from the rounded face and from her height, that is clearly Mikasa as a child. Now, in the anime version, in episode 1, season 1, they changed everything completely. So instead of Eren waking up from a peaceful dream, he instead had a super aggressive nightmare where he saw his mother getting eaten, he saw soldiers dead, he saw titans just roaming around, and yeah, he woke up from that. So that dream was completely different. So in the anime, episode 1, they changed it from the manga. Now, in part 3, this is a third version, which is, in many ways, it's actually different from the previous two. I will say, you can clearly tell Mikasa does say "see you later" in this version as well, but you can also tell that this is an adult version of Mikasa. So when we look at her face, it's less rounded, it's more chiseled like the adult version of Mikasa. She's also taller as well. So yeah, we have 3 versions of this one scene. I guess you could say this is now the most canon version of them all because it's the latest version. I assume that Isayama probably has some input on this episode as well as, you know, the other final episode that's going to come. So out of all the 3, this is the one that we should pay the most attention to. Alright, so following on from the opening scene, we then switch over to Marley, where we're introduced to Ramsey and Halil, who are brothers or cousins. I mean, they have the same grandfather, so it's going to be one of those two. And now the reason I'm highlighting this scene is because we have seen Ramsey a couple times before. The first time that we as an audience saw him was during the episode Two Brothers, because if you guys remember, when Eren went into the past dimension, he saw a bunch of different visions, including things from like alternate realities, and one of those visions was of Ramsey. Now, that's the first time we saw him as an audience, but obviously, by this point in the timeline, when Eren had the vision of Ramsey, he already knew who Ramsey was. Now, the second time we saw him was during the episode Dawn of Humanity when he stole Sasha's purse, and one thing about that is that when he did that and when he was caught, there was a group of Malians that surrounded him, and they literally said they were going through all these different punishments that they might give him to stop him from stealing again, and one person literally said we should smash his hand to stop him from pickpocketing again. When you look at Ramsey now, he clearly is missing his right hand, so either they chopped it off or they smashed it so badly that he had to get it decapitated or amputated. Clearly, after the scouts left, at some point in the future after that, he got in trouble again and they were like, you know what, we're tired of you, let's just smash your hand. Also, speaking about the episode Dawn of Humanity, there was a moment in that episode when Eren went missing for a while. And so after that, they all went searching for him, basically for the rest of the day. And what this episode in part 3 is showing us is that when he went missing, he was actually just walking through the streets of Marley, looking at people and being like, damn, I'm really going to kill these people. We have to understand that fundamentally, Eren didn't want to do this initially. However, with everything that's happened at this point in the timeline, he's kind of accepted that, yeah, I am going to have to kill these people. These are real people who are going to die. Now, as he's walking through the city, he then sees Ramsey getting beaten up in one of the alleyways, and just looking at the footage again, these guys were enjoying it a little bit too much. Because Ramsey's what, like 8 years old? Like, yeah, they didn't have to do him like that. And this is when Eren has a bit of a crisis because he knows for a fact that one day he's going to kill Ramsey. He's going to do the rumbling, it's going to crush Ramsey. So from a moral perspective, if you know you're going to kill someone in the future, what's the point of you saving them now? Well, what's the point of you acting like a hero when you know this person you're saving you're going to kill? So that's the crisis that Eren has in this scene. It's why for a moment he does hesitate and he kind of just like walks out of the alleyway because, yeah, like I said, he's gonna kill this kid, so why would he save him? What's the point? But ultimately, Eren does still go back, he beats the guys up, he saves Ramsey, and this is what leads to 2 more Easter eggs. So the first Easter egg, if we look back at the previous episode, there was a moment when Mikasa finds Eren and we see that down there Ramsey is kind of just like waving to him. But now we know it's because Eren possibly even saved his life. The next Easter egg is what Eren says to Ramsey, which is that he kind of like breaks down and starts crying. And there are 2 key reasons why he's crying right now. Reason number 1, he's realizing for the first time that to save Eldia, he's going to have to kill real innocent people. That's something that until he came here, he didn't fully understand. When he was standing on the beach in season 3 looking out, he was like, yeah, what if we kill our enemies? Because at that time, his enemies were an abstract concept. Now that he's in Mali, now that he's seeing kids like Ramsey who are completely innocent, knowing that they're going to die because of what he's going to do, he feels guilty for it. And that's why he's apologizing. He's basically saying, I'm sorry I'm doing this, but I have to do it to save my people. But in addition to that, saving the people isn't his only reason. The second reason is that he was severely disappointed at what the outside world is. If we run it back for a second, if we put ourselves in Eren's shoes, for all of his life, he's believed that outside the walls were these things that he saw in Armin's book. The lava, the plains of sand, the icy landscapes, all these amazing things were beyond the walls, and the only thing standing between him and reaching those things, which those things are freedom to him. Freedom is seeing those things. And the only thing standing between Eren and those things were the Titans. That's what he believed for most of his life. Now, when he finally defeated the Titans and was able to go outside the walls and do whatever he wanted, he realized, I'm still not free because these humans outside the walls are stopping me from, seeing the things that I read about in Armin's book. So he was disappointed at the fact that there's another enemy across the sea. And he's also disappointed at the fact that the things he read about, where are they? He expected to see those things. He can't see them because there are humans who are trying to kill him. So that is also a secondary reason why he wants to do the rambling. He wants to wipe everything away and just start again and achieve that dream of freedom. And it's why when we have this scene later on, Eren appears as a kid as he's achieving freedom, because ultimately on the inside, the version of freedom that he's trying to get is the one he's wanted ever since he was this age. Ever since he was a kid, this is what he wanted. And so I think that's why we see him as a child as he's achieving that freedom by wiping out humanity. So yeah, as Ramsey and Halil are running away from the rumbling, they do drop the money, and this is a really small detail, but I did like how on the money you see clearly that Helos is there. So Helos is like the guy who defeated the founding titan 100 years ago, and so he's become such a staple of Mali's culture that he is on the currency, which is, I'm pretty sure that detail was never in the manga, or at least I never saw it. So yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool detail. Now, this scene of Ramsey dying was insane. Like, he opens his eyes, he sees his brother dead in front of him, his leg's broken so he can't move, and then the colossal foot just crushes him. Like, it's insane imagery. It's insane. But the one thing I wanted to highlight about this scene is that as Ramsey's dying, he literally sees the founder Ymir standing in front of him. It is possible that Ramsey is a subject of Ymir. And the reason I say that is because in the previous episode, the Malians were speculating that he could be an Eldian. They were talking about that, and you only need to have one Eldian parent to be an Eldian. You don't need to look like the people of Paradise. You can look like anyone. So it is possible that he is a subject of Ymir. Now, personally, I don't think he is, because if he was an Eldian, then he would have heard Eren's message and he would have been more aware that the rumbling was coming. So that's the reason why I don't think he is, but we can't deny that he is seeing her in this moment. As the rumbling continues, there were a few other things that I thought were worth pointing out. So number one, the remnants of Eren's fight with the Warhammer Titan, it's still there. The spiral on the left is from when Lara basically shot Eren into the air and then tried to decapitate him. And the second little Warhammer bit here, that was created when she basically used up the last bit of energy she had to try and kill him. But yeah, those two remnants of the fight, it's still there like months later, which I thought was kind of interesting. In addition to that, we have Annie's childhood neighborhood being destroyed. You can tell it's her neighborhood because of the punching bags, which her dad used to try to, train her to be a warrior. So that's destroyed as well. And the best anime edition, this was the thing that I loved. I was not expecting this. We see Eren's grandparents. So Eren's grandparents have been locked in a prison cell, presumably because of Zeke's betrayal. Everyone found out that he was a traitor pretty early on after the battle in Liberia. And so I'm assuming that immediately after that, that's when Eren's grandparents were put into jail. If you look closely, this area where they're being held captive is actually the same place where Zeke was, when Zeke was a warrior candidate, they put him on like cleaning duty. And this is the same place where he was walking through the hallway and then he overheard that they were about to find the Eldian Restorationists. So this building has some significance because it's the place where Zeke heard something that changed his entire life. If he wasn't there on that day, it's possible he would have died a long time ago as well. Anyway, for the rest of this scene, it's just the rumbling, destroying Liberia. One thing I liked is that it was really realistic what they're showing here. We see people stealing, which is what always happens during any natural disaster, but then they're stealing and then getting crushed a second later. Another thing was the fact that regardless of whether you're rich or poor, you're going to get trampled. You know, we see the rich guy in his car trying to run away, and we see the poor people running next to him. All of them are crushed regardless. Like, it don't matter who you are, you're gonna die. The anime also conveys really well how hot the Titans are, because when they approach the forest, you know, it kind of set on fire immediately. And in the streets of Liberia, there are people who have been burnt to a crisp. They've not even been trampled. The heat from the Titans is just so hot, they just got burnt to a crisp. Now, after Armin appears in the past dimension because of Eren, he then gets brought back into the real world, and we see basically him and Annie having a lot of romantic tension. This is just for me personally. The reason I never minded it is because from Annie's perspective, it makes perfect sense why she'd have some sort of crush on Armin. You know, she's been locked in this crystal for years, and Armin, he's the only person who voluntarily went to say hi to her, to talk to her. When it came to Hitch, the only reason Hitch was there is because it was her job. She was told by the military police, you know, you're the one who's going to look after Annie's crystal, so she was there all the time. For Armin, he was voluntarily going there all the time for years to talk to Annie, to literally just speak to a dead person. Okay, she wasn't dead, but you know what I mean. He was going out of his way to speak to her, to say hi to her, to look at her, and on one occasion to try and touch her. So I guess she appreciates that, and she even says it in this video. She says it in this episode that she was grateful for it. It was the only joy she had. So in that sense, you can easily see why she would develop some kind of feelings for him over these years, because she sees how much he cares about her. Now, why does he care about her? This is the part where it gets a bit weird, because it's because of Bertolt's crush on Annie that it's basically been transferred to Armin. So he feels these feelings of love for her largely because of what Bertolt was feeling. So that's the only weird part about this. But from Annie's point of view, I do see why she appreciates him, why she kind of likes him in this way. And also one other thing, just before we move on, even back in season 1, Annie did respect Armin a lot. There was a moment during the female Titan arc where she could have easily killed him. She killed a lot of other people, and she was about to kill John as well, right? So she doesn't mind killing people in her own class. But it was Armin specifically that she was like, you know what? She spared his life, so she's always had some kind of feelings of respect towards him. So we got to take that into account as well. That this romance, even though it does kind of seem out of the blue because we've not seen her for so long, it does still make sense based on the things that we're talking about. But anyway, when the scouts eventually make it to Odaha, they see that the entire city is empty. Basically, everyone's evacuated. Even though the population of Odaha is gone, there are still dogs, animals left behind, and it just reinforces that Eren isn't just killing humanity. He's destroying all life outside the walls. That includes dogs, it includes horses, it includes plant life, trees, all these other things that make the planet what it is. He's just wiping everything away. Obviously, killing all humans on the planet is terrible, and you know, that in itself is bad. But this kind of just reminds you, you know, Eren's going a little bit too far, don't you think? Like, he's killing everything, all life. I'm just thinking that, you know, it reinforces to me that Eren is not a good person. You know, we shouldn't be supporting him in doing the rumbling, because there's a lot of innocent creatures and innocent people who are going to die for, they don't even have a role in this conflict, and they're going to die regardless. So yeah, it just kind of reinforces we shouldn't be supporting the rumbling, in case you didn't know. Now, when the Alliance bring the flying boat into the hangar to, you know, fuel it up and get it ready to go in the air, there's a couple things worth pointing out. Now, the first thing is that the explosives are still on there. So those explosives were originally put on the flying boat by the Jaegerists. You know, Daz and Samuel put it on there so that they could blow it up in case it needed to be blown up, because as far as the Jaegerists knew, as long as they destroyed the flying boat, then no one could stop the rumbling, because the flying boat was the only way to get off the island. Since then, up until now, those explosives have still been on the boat. And what I didn't like about this is that Reiner in this scene, he's kind of like, let's just cut them off and throw them away. And Armin is the one who steps in and he's like, no, why don't we hold on to these explosives, implying that they're going to use it on Eren at some point. You would expect that the people who are willing to kill Eren the most would be someone like Reiner or someone like Peak. You don't really expect it to be Armin saying, let's hold on to this stuff. But yeah, I just didn't like the idea that Armin's the one who suggests that they hold on to these things to kill Eren, instead of Eren's enemy saying it. You know, it'd be different if Peak had said this, because that would have made sense. But for Armin to say it, yeah, I never really liked that. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments down below. Mikasa feels like Eren isn't the true Eren right now. She feels like what he's doing isn't really him. And so that's what Mikasa believes right now. So she's going to get him and bring him back. And it's why she's not wearing the scarf, because even though she has the scarf with her, like she says, the reason she's not wearing it is because to Mikasa, the the scarf represents Eren being a good person. I mean, it represents a lot of things, but above everything else, the scarf represents home, and it represents Eren being a good person, because he was the one who gave her this scarf during her lowest moment. He's the one who gave her hope when she had no hope, when she was depressed because her parents had been murdered. So to her, that scarf represents him being good and him being the normal Eren. And right now, he's not the normal Eren in her mind. And so she doesn't want to wear it for now, but once or if she brings Eren back, that is when she would put it on. Another detail is that Yelena revealed the existence of a research base in the south of Mali, and that fortress is called Fort Salta. What's relevant about this is that during the episode Two Brothers, when Eren was going into pods, he saw a vision of Fort Salta, and when he saw that vision, there was a giant bird flying in front of it. So that ties into what Falco says later in the episode, and we'll talk about that. But for now, we need to acknowledge that Eren saw the future when he saw Fort Salta, and there was a bird next to it, which has a lot of relevance. Now, the next day, as the Alliance get ready to go, we see that Levi, he only has 2 fingers left on his right hand, but for him specifically, this isn't actually such a bad thing. We've seen in the past that Levi is the only character to occasionally hold his swords backwards sometimes, and when he holds it this way, it's his pinky finger and his ring finger that are, that are locked in there. So he's the only person who knows how to use the swords and the ODM gear with a pinky finger and a ring finger. And so in the situation, even though he's only got the pinky and the ring, he can still actually use the ODM gear because he has the experience, which I thought was a cool detail. And it definitely shows Isayama had been planning ahead for this, because like I said, it's not like Levi's learning from scratch. He already knows how to use these 2 fingers to use the ODM gear. This scene between Levi and Hange was honestly great. Hange essentially asked Levi, do you think that our fallen comrades are watching us? Do you think they're proud of us? And this is a parallel of what Commander Erwin said back in the Battle of Shiganshina. In that moment, Erwin was kind of like, he knew that he'd have to give up on his dream to defeat the Beast Titan. It was the guilt of knowing that his comrades were watching him that made him feel like he should do the plan. And obviously then Levi made the decision for him and, convinced him to do it. But Erwin always had the belief that their comrades were watching, and I guess Hange is now adopting that, and is why Levi says, don't stop talking like him. I thought it was a pretty cool parallel. So, as they finish preparations for the flying boat to take off, Flock suddenly appears out of nowhere, and this was actually incredible. It shows an incredible level of willpower to hold on all the way from Eldia to Odaha. I would imagine it's the distance between like England and France. Like, that was a long ass time. That was a long trip that you were just hanging on there. And we have to remember as well, Flock was injured, he got hit by Gabby. So he was not in a good condition, but he held on the entire way. He had that willpower that's comparable to Eren himself. And his goal was to shoot the ship, damage it as much as possible. And I gotta say, his death was way more gruesome in the anime than I remember it being in the manga. Mikasa shoots his neck with the ODM gear, and his body is just there. It's just suspended in the air. Like, that is really messed up. That is not what I was expecting to see in this episode. But yeah, like on Yankapong says, Flock shot a hole in the fuel tank, so that it created a brand new dilemma, because with the flying boat being damaged like this, it meant that they needed way more time to get it fixed. And obviously, the whole time they've been in Odaha, the rumblings were getting closer and closer to them. So the timing really couldn't have been worse. They need an hour to fix this ship. And as that hour comes around, the rumbling is right around the corner. So yeah, terrible, terrible timing. Couldn't have been worse. With his dying breath, Flock begs them not to go and try and fix the problem, because he literally spells it out for them. Everyone on the island will be killed. What does he say? Our devils are our only hope. Yeah, talking about Eren. That's interesting, because he said the exact same thing about Erwin back in Shiganshina. Now, this scene is both important and hilarious. So as they're deciding what they're going to do, how they're going to delay the rumbling enough to get the flying boat back in the air, I thought it was so funny that Reiner thought he could do something. Like, let's be for real, yeah. Imagine they actually said, yeah, Reiner, go ahead and stop the rumbling. What the hell was he going to do? Like, he would get squashed. And it's not like his armor is invincible. His armor gets broken all the time. So I can't even imagine what Reiner was planning to do here. But yeah, he volunteers himself. Obviously, no one's on board with that. Armin volunteers himself. Now, that was actually a decent suggestion. But as it turns out, in this episode, Hange is the one who sacrifices herself. I love this moment between her and Armin. Her, like, appointing him as the next commander of the scouts. Armin always had potential to be like Erwin in the sense that he saw things that other people didn't, and he was able to create intricate plans like Erwin did. And so this is him, I guess you could say, coming of age. You know, it's him stepping into that role finally. And it's funny because when Armin was brought back, I'm pretty sure Levi said to him, like, you're never going to replace Erwin, but, you know, do your best. Well, this is him now stepping up, replacing Erwin in being commander of the scouts. And I guess the last thing to mention about it is that Armin, you know, like Hange says, he has that special quality in that he's inquisitive, he's intelligent, and he has a desire to understand other people. Him and Hange are very similar in that respect. If anyone here was going to replace her as the commander of the scouts, well, to be honest, I think Jean could do a good job as well. I think Jean could have done a good job. But yeah, Armin makes sense too. Also, I love her and Levi. They have like a telepathic connection. If you guys remember, back when Yelena and the volunteers first arrived on the island, there was that moment when Levi and Hange, they kind of just looked at each other. They didn't say anything, but they were like, they were thinking things, and it was almost as if they could read each other's thoughts. And this moment here is like that. They don't need to say much. Levi knows why Hange is doing this. He understands. Still super emotional. Hange fighting against the Titans is amazing. And this right here, I'm going to pause it for a second. This shot right here of Hange in front of the Colossal Titan, that is amazing. That is fantastic. This episode has a lot of amazing shots, so I'm not going to say this is my favorite shot of the episode, but this is like top 5. I love this shot. I also like the nice touch with the anime of them adding Flock's body, his body being crushed by the debris. This episode in general, it added these little details. We saw it earlier on with like the people killing themselves during the rumbling. All these small details that you couldn't really put that in the manga. There's just not enough space to put all these different things. They've really taken advantage of the fact that this is animated. They can add all these extra things. And I really appreciate it. And of course, we then get Scout Heaven, I guess you could call it. Everyone's there. I'm going to pause it for a second. We have Erwin, obviously. In the background, you can see Instructor Shardis is there as well, who Hange used to have a crush on. She used to actually really like him, apparently. But yeah, what's this guy's name in the front? I think his name's Moblit. Not sure how to pronounce it, but he was like her right-hand man. Like this guy here, he died to save her life. When Bertolt did his big colossal explosion, he was the one who pushed her into the well. Saved her life, really. But I guess the main thing we need to know about this scene, the main thing we need to acknowledge, is that by this scene being a thing, this is Isayama telling us that, yeah, no matter what, Erwin, Mike, Moblit, all these other characters, they are in favor of stopping Eren destroying the world, which is fair enough. You know, it's a reasonable side to be on, not wanting to destroy all life on the planet. Also, there's Erwin basically admitting, like, yeah, Hange, you had it really bad, because Hange had to deal with the Jaegerists uprising by force. You know, they assassinated Premier Zachary. She had to deal with Eren vanishing in Mali, running away. She had to deal with getting Eren back to the island, which meant people dying and a whole convoluted plan in Mali. It was a really difficult time to be leader of the scouts, and Hange did not have it easy. Even before all of that crazy stuff happened, Hange was also given the burden of having to figure out how to make peace with the outside world. Because, you know, the whole thing was that, you know, if we don't make peace with the outside world, then we're going to have to do a mini rumbling. So for years, she had the job of trying to decide, how are we going to solve this problem, this impossible problem? So in many ways, you could say it was almost or equally as bad as some of the things that Erwin had to deal with. Erwin dealt with a lot too, so we can't pretend like he had it easy. He went through a lot of crap as well. But yeah, neither of them had it easy at all. So the episode is split into 2 chapters. So this second chapter is called Sinners, and it kind of just begins in the aftermath of Hange's death. So now they're flying towards Eren, or more specifically, they're flying towards Fort Salta. And the problem here is that they only have half the fuel they were meant to have. Because of the whole craziness with Flock, they couldn't fuel the ship properly. But Onyankopon is determined to make it to Eren no matter what, because as we know, the fate of his own country is on the line as well. So what Armin said just then is a parallel of something Hange said back in the raid on Liberia. Here, Armin basically taps Onyankopon on the shoulder. He says, you know, we're in your hands. Please get us to Fort Salta. Now, back in Liberia, Hange basically said the same thing. I think her exact words were, we're counting on you, Onyankopon. So 2 occasions now, the commander of the scouts has said to Onyankopon, you know, we're relying on you, we're counting on you, we're in your hands. So yeah, I thought that was a nice parallel. There have been quite a few parallels in this episode. You know, we had Hange and Erwin, bunch of different parallels. Okay, so the Alliance then come up with a plan to stop Eren. Now, the problem with this plan is that they don't know for sure that he's going to be in the nape. And so Pieck suggests the idea that they just blow up the whole thing. You know, they get close to the founding titan, Armin detonates the largest explosion he can, and that just kills Eren and just stops the whole rumbling. Armin even admits that this is the most effective way of doing it. However, obviously they want to talk to Eren, they want to try and talk him out of doing the rumbling before they try and kill him or anything like that. So that's plan A. Plan A is to blow Eren up, which is not what they want to do. Plan B is to talk to Eren, which is what Armin suggested. And plan C is something that Levi suggested, which is that they go for the Beast Titan. Now, the idea behind Levi's theory is that if they kill Zeke, if they kill the Titan of Royal Blood, then it means that Eren literally won't have the power to continue the rumbling. Because as we've established for a long time now, Eren can only control the Founder if he makes contact with the Titan of Royal Blood. And when the rumbling began, Zeke was literally absorbed into the source of all living matter. So as far as we know, Zeke is inside the Founding Titan somewhere. He's somewhere inside that pile of bones. And also, you know, no one in this room has a problem with killing Zeke. You know, everyone has a reason why they would want to kill him. The Warriors, he betrayed them. The Scouts, they have no loyalty to him. So yeah, no one here has any problem with killing Zeke. So that's what they'd rather do, rather than going straight for killing Eren himself. Something else that I thought was great about this scene is the Scouts realizing how hard it was for Reiner. They never really empathized with what Reiner had to go through until this exact moment, because they're basically in the same position that he was. If we look at it side by side, the Scouts had to kill their friends in order to save the world. They're killing their friends in order to stop Eren destroying the planet. Now, when Reiner was younger, he basically said that he wanted to destroy the Island Devils to save the world. That was his main goal. But when he got to the island, when he met the Island Devils and realized they were just normal people, that's what made it difficult for him, because he became friends with them. He became attached to them. And so, yeah, he did still betray them and did still go against them, but it was hard. And he was doing it to save the world. So they understand what he's going through, because they're literally doing the same thing now. They've betrayed their people. Now, the other thing worth mentioning about this scene is Armin and Pieck, you know, they realize that Eren is letting them act freely. If Eren wanted to right now, he could probably do some crazy stuff to these guys. He could probably, like, you know, you guys remember that scene in Doctor Strange 2 when Wanda kind of just like removes that guy's mouth? You know, if Eren wanted to, I'm sure he could do that same thing to everyone in this airship. The reason he's not doing it is because he wants them to have free will. Even though he's going towards his goal of wiping out humanity and achieving freedom, he's also not going to take away freedom from Armin, Mikasa, and his friends. You know, he wouldn't do that. So they have the freedom to try and stop him if they want. But obviously, if he's going for his goal and they're going for their goal, it's inevitable that they're going to collide and fight at some point, because they have opposite views on whether they should rumble humanity or not. Now, Eren does take them to paths, and there was a detail that I loved about this scene, and that was when they run towards him, as they think they're getting closer, they suddenly end up even further away. Eren is just messing with them using the power of the Founder. Another thing that was an anime-only addition is that when Mikasa is running towards him in this scene, she sees a flashback of when they were actually kids and when she was running after him. And no spoilers, but that moment is from when they were kids and they used to, basically there was one day when Eren suggested they should race to the tree on the hill. And on that day, Eren was in the lead. Mikasa could have easily overtaken him, but she decided to stay behind him. And I think that vision right there is from that moment when she let him run ahead of her as they ran towards the tree on the hill. So the next scene then switches to the boat, where we have Annie, Kiyomi, Falco, and Gabby, and all of the Hizuru engineers. And the main takeaway from this scene is the fact that we learn a few new things about the Titans. Thing number one that we learn is that when a Titan consumes a part of another Titan, they can, in some situations, inherit that Titan's abilities. So, according to Annie, the female Titan is the best at doing this, and it's why she was able to do her scream to attract Titans. She clearly ate the Beast Titan or something and got his ability. She also has the hardening. You know, maybe she got that from eating Zeke or potentially Reiner. But the basic idea is that when a Titan eats a part of another Titan, they can gain certain powers. Now, this is what brings us to Falco, because as we all know, Falco accidentally consumes some of the Beast Titan spinal fluid. This is way back in part 1 of the final season. He drank the tainted wine that had Zeke's spinal fluid. So by that definition, it means that when he became a Titan, he had the Beast Titan's DNA inside him, and it's why he's become this hybrid between a Beast Titan and a Jaw Titan. So in many ways, Falco isn't just a Jaw Titan, he is two Titans in one. And it's why in this instance, as he's saying here, he can literally manifest Beast Titan characteristics. He can see Beast Titan memories, not just Zeke's, but other Beast Titans as well. And the clearest memory, the memory he sees most often, is of a Titan flying high in the sky, meaning that in the past there have been Beast Titans who can fly, because Beast Titans can take different forms. It depends on who the user is. And when it comes to Falco, since he was introduced to the series, he's had a lot of bird-like imagery. His very first appearance was him looking up at the sky, he saw a bird, he's reaching out to it, and then his name is Falco. You know, I feel like that's intentional. Falcon, Falco. There's a lot of bird connections to this character. So it shouldn't be surprising that if he was going to be a Beast Titan, it would be one that could fly. But anyway, that's enough rambling. Moving on to the next scene. So this scene is near Fort Salta. There's a train heading towards Fort Salta, and it's been hijacked by the Eldians from Liberia. So the last time we saw Annie's dad and all these other characters, they're basically victims of police brutality. Like, the police literally kicked them to the ground, and the next thing we heard was a gunshot, and it went black. So the implication back then was that, you know, they were shooting the Eldians in the internment zone. When in reality, there was some kind of uprising, and Annie's dad, he was able to get a lot of the Eldians away from Liberia onto this train heading straight for Fort Salta. And it was a great strategy as well, because, you know, Fort Salta is the only place that has these airships. So if they get the airships, they can kind of fly over the rumbling. And based on the resources they had, this was the best possible option for them to do. Now, it's worth pointing out that on this train is Reiner's mother. We got Peek's dad. We have Gabby's parents, Gabby and Falco's parents as well. So when the warrior parents and their families then make it to the top of the fort, they realize that every single one of the ships is gone. Like, there's not a single one left, but it's because they've all been deployed to attack the Founding Titan. Literally, all the remaining airships were being focused on this one bombing run, and essentially their main goal here was to get close to the Founding Titan, but not too close, but close enough so that when they drop the bombs, it can all be concentrated on his head and on his neck, which would, in all likelihood, it would decapitate the Founding Titan. It would blow Eren's head off. But the key is that they have to be close enough so that all the bombs are concentrated in this one area. If they're too high up in the sky, then the bombs are going to be too separated and, you know, they're not going to be effective. And so yeah, their plan was to get close-ish to Eren. In this moment, we then get a nice anime original flashback of Reiner's mom, and she's kind of just realizing for the first time that she, you know, obviously she loves Reiner, but she's realizing that she's used him as a tool to kind of like further herself. She made him into a warrior. By the way, before I even continue, that was horrifying. That image right there. Why did they draw her like that? She looks like something from It or something. I don't know. But what she's saying here is that the whole time, you know, I treated my boy as a tool for revenge. I've still never done a single motherly thing for him. And this is a theme that you can probably see with a lot of the warrior parents, especially Annie's dad, who he adopted her to mold her into a soldier that would give him a better life. That was the whole reason he got her in the first place. So he kind of empathizes with what Reiner's mother is saying. But I also, you know, you can also empathize with the parents themselves, because at the end of the day, the only chance they had for a better life inside the internment zone was to do what they did. So although it's not the best, and although they didn't maybe treat their kids like normal kids, you can't be too hard on them. They did what they did based on the terrible circumstances that they were put in unfairly by the Malians. In this moment, as the ships approach, Eren then activates the Founding Titan, but as the bombs are falling, Eren literally creates his own Beast Titan out of Titan hardening. It's fully flexible. It's almost as if it was Zeke himself, but it's not Zeke. It's not Zeke. We need to emphasize that. This is essentially a clone of Zeke made purely out of Titan hardening, and because it is made out of hardening, it's able to create these rocks in its hand that it's able to throw. But yeah, once again, we need to emphasize this is not Zeke, because the real Zeke does not support anything Eren is doing. The real Zeke ultimately wanted a solution that led to the end of the Eldian race, while at the same time allowing them to live out their lives in peace. Whereas his crazy brother wants to eliminate all life on the planet. So big difference. There's a big difference between their ideologies, and so the real Zeke would never have supported Eren in this way. He never would have wiped out the airships. This is purely Eren controlling a fake Warhammer Beast Titan. With Eren then destroying those airships, it meant that all hope was lost for humanity, because Those airships that he destroyed were the last ones. There aren't any more in storage. That was it. However, as we can see here, the scouts then show up at the last second and they get bombarded by the fake Beast Titan. If we assume that Eren is controlling the fake Beast Titan, it's quite a risky move for him to throw rocks at the ship that has all your friends on it. You know, what if one of those had just happened to go through like the front windshield and like went straight for Mikasa or straight for Armin and killed them? Like, playing with fire a little bit. Eren's playing with fire. But this scene is so well animated though. So the people on the sides, they can see what's going on. Reiner's mother is obviously super emotional to see him because realistically, she thought she was never going to see him again. The last time she heard, he was on the island having, you know, done the invasion with Commander Magath and the Malians. So as far as she knew, he was probably dead, but he might be alive. I don't think she was ever expecting that he'd show up out of nowhere, tackle the Beast Titan, and, you know, be part of this operation to stop the rumbling. So from her perspective, this has got to be insane. From Annie's dad's perspective, obviously Annie isn't here, so he doesn't see her, but he's always been the parent who believed that his child was alive. Even when no one else believed it, he maintained that Annie was still alive on the island. I'm sure Annie's dad must be wondering, where the hell is Annie? You know, you got Peak, you got Reiner, where's Annie? So that's definitely going to be something that will be touched on again. But overall, I mean, that episode was amazing. My favorite episode of Attack on Titan was Two Brothers. I've referenced that episode a couple times already. I've watched it so many times. Two Brothers is my favorite, but this was something else, wasn't it? This was basically a movie. It was an hour long. Longest episode of the series we've ever had. I'm just trying to work out in my head, is this my favorite episode, or is it still Two Brothers? I'm trying to figure out. There was nothing more they could have done to reach a 10 out of 10. So yeah, I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. This was a fantastic episode, fantastic movie. I loved it. Is it better than Two Brothers? I guess this episode has the advantage of being longer, so there's more content as well. I don't know. I'm going to say this is my joint favorite episode. This is my joint favorite episode of Attack on Titan. This and Two Brothers. Until the next one, I'd appreciate it if you subscribe, hit that like button, and do all the other good stuff that helps the algorithm. And yeah, let me know in the comments down below, what was your favorite part of the episode? Until the next one, peace out.